Hello, YouTubers, MMA fans, UFC fans, and most importantly, Fighting Guru fans, because we matter the most. Forget everybody else is far second and third. Fighting Guru fans especially, welcome to my episode. Today I'm going to talk about one of my best value plays. This is a guy who I'm surely confident in. You know what? I got to do it this way. Typically, I separate the lock of the week with my best value play. My best value play and lock of the week are going to usually more often than not be separate segments. But today's segment has to be consolidated because there are two of the same fights. It's the same pick, it's the same fighter. So we might as well get it done with two birds with one stone, and I'll use this as a twofer. Okay. My best value play of the day, which is a lock. This is one of the best locks of the night for the UFC Reyes, Dominick Reyes, and Jiri Prochazka. I'm a fan of this guy. I've been a fan since the early rise and risen days of his, and I seen him coming from a mile away. I knew he was going to hit the UFC doors a matter of time before he made it to the UFC. I even thought he could be a UFC champion in the future. So, it's funny, I still have trouble with their names. But just it goes to show why I need a name lady. All right, but Dominick, man, and how excited are you guys? Are you guys anybody as excited as me to watch a Jiri fight? Win, lose, or draw, that guy's going to give you a show. His fights, this is probably of our generation. He's the closest we've had to as far as excitement. I'm not talking about the greatest of all time. Nothing to do with accolades or accomplishments. I'm just talking about exciting fighter to watch. Because you remember Anderson Silva back in his days was the closest that we had to a Muhammad Ali. He was our Muhammad Ali for a long time. He was showboating and it was working until he got his head taken off by Chris Weidman, which rest in peace to Chris Weidman's career. It's such an ironic thing, right? To have something that's such a freak accident that's only happened 2 times in the history of the UFC that we know of. It's only happened twice. And for it to be with the same guy who the first time it was involved with in the same fight that it was involved with in the first time it ever happened, years later for it to happen again, the only other time involving the same guy. Wow, what a coincidence, right? That's crazy. Weird stuff happens in that. Now we know MMA is just so full of unexpected and even the least likely odds in the world can happen. You can never count anything out. We've seen a guy dominate 10 to 8 rounds, submission attempts, takedowns, successful takedowns, so almost finishing his opponent in the last round, the most important round. 2 out of the 3 of the rounds secured dominant position. Even in the end when the bell's ringing, he was in the top dominating position to lose unanimously. Not even a split decision, I don't think it was. Crazy. Weird stuff, man. But that's Jacksonville for you. Anytime they go to a place that's there's a reason why that's one of the only places that's open for a full audience attendance. They're corrupt. They care more about money and opening up the gate. They made $3.3 million in the gates for the audience that was in attendance. And there's a reason why no other place is hardly doing it. That's why Dana White said, if I have to keep coming back to Jacksonville every single event, I will. But that's a reason that they're putting people's health. They don't care about social distancing. They're not even covering half of the stadium to make it social distance. They let the whole stadium fill up. They don't care. Money is the first priority for these people. So that's why it's easy to have corrupt judges from there. Anyways, just keep that in mind. I even got the judges' names down for you guys in the Patreon if you wanted to see who the judges are. Anyway, so my lock of the week, I'm going to tell you, man, I got to be honest. I'm very impressed with the UFC's matchmaker. They got not even a matchmaker. There's got to be somebody that works for. The matchmaker is not this intelligent. Whoever is making these fights has a fight IQ maybe even as good as mine. This is a guy who knows how to make sparks happen, how to make magic and a good show come about. This is a guy who realized by putting Rodolfo Vieira and Anthony Fluffy, you're going to get a minus 600 favorite. But 9 out of 10 times, Fluffy's going to win that fight, which is, I saw that. I even was so precise about it. I said it's going to take the guy's going to get desperate for a takedown, because whether it's being gassed out or by being picked apart on the feet because he's such a bad striker, he would get desperate for a takedown. And Anthony Fluffy's specialty, if there's nothing he's good at, there's one thing he's great at, is he's even had wins. If you look at his highlights or researched his fight tapes, you'll notice he's won fights by somebody taking not taking the precautions, setting up the combinations, level changing, and instead of doing it the proper way, just shooting desperate for takedowns. I've witnessed Anthony Fluffy snatch up a neck and put people to sleep. And even many other times he didn't do it, but attempted to. So I've seen several attempts, and some of them even successful in the regional scene. So anybody who studied, who knows the fighters, putting them together and what should have happened, could have saw a big upset. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of excitement. These people know how to put these matches together. They're very sophisticated in the fight knowledge industry. Fight game. They know how to put fighters together and make some magic happen. For example, do you remember the Cody Stamann fight? I told you they put him against a guy who was a uppercut machine. And Cody Stamann was a guy who was so easy to land an uppercut against. The guy's biggest mistake in his flaw in his striking is the way when he's throwing his punches, he leaves himself open to a uppercut. So every time, there's not even one time, or what I told you about that round Alexander Romanov versus Juan Espino, it was the nightmare. Like, they know how to put these two people together to make who they want to be behind victorious. They know if they have an agenda, they want a highlight reel, they want an upset, they want whatever, they know how to put it together. So you got to be smarter than them or as smart as them. That's the perk of being in my group. The guy's good, but he's not better than me. He can never pull the wool over my eyes. So let me tell you what he's doing with this lock of the week. A lot of people are even counting Sean. Remember, if you guys remember in my comment section, the comments are still there. I was arguing a long time ago when they brought in Sean Strickland after a long layoff. He had gotten some time off from a motorcycle accident, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was a motorcycle accident. And yeah, it was a motorcycle accident. He had some time off. They had finally brought him back, and it was against the prospect who was looking great and who we just made some money off of, Brandon Allen. Brandon Allen opened up as a moderate size favorite against Sean Strickland. Everybody was convinced it was a worst nightmare matchup, but they were right about one thing. It was a terrible style matchup. Not for Strickland, though. I spelled it out in my comment section. This was before my Patreon was very big. I was willing to kind of engage with the comment section more about what was going to happen in the fights. I was doing full card breakdowns at this time before I got into the Patreon so deep. But so I spelled it out for you guys. I said what was going to happen was just similar to the Rodolfo situation, that after getting picked apart because of the range, this guy's footwork, the way he uses his angles and his jab, the only other person that's as good, if not better, at using the jab, and he's better in a sense, he actually is better than Usman at using his jab. The difference is his jab may not be as effective as Usman's because Usman's stronger. So a stronger person using a jab will be more effective. But the guy who uses the more better, if minus the strength, if you're just comparing the two of as far as techniques and the way it's thrown and how often it's used, the guy pumps it really good. He doesn't use it as little bit as as rare as Usman uses it. Well, sometimes we'll see Usman use it more often, but he uses it in all of his fights. The guy was able to put away Tom Breese or beat Tom Breese when Tom Breese was at his best, when he was like undefeated and a world beater, talked about being a huge prospect, a future contender for the champion, threat to the champion, and a contender for the belt. This is when everybody was super high on Tom Breese before his like depression and all that crazy stuff that he's going through psychologically had happened. He was in his prime, at his best. This guy just picked them apart. It was so beautiful. You have to really appreciate a fighting technique, the boxing angles and the jab and his footwork, and every time he touched him, he would be somewhere else. You couldn't predict where he was going to be. It was so frustrating. You could tell and even though he only won by split decision, the judges messed that up because they were so high on that guy that I said that he beat Tom Breese was such a big thing at the time. It was embarrassing to say that somebody who was able to who's not even a top 10 guy was able to do that to a guy that they all said was supposed to be one of the greatest new guys in their agency or in their league. So they made it look like it was closer than it was. It wasn't. And believe me, they would have robbed him if it wasn't so apparent that he got outclassed. And if you can outclass, did you see what Breese did to KB Buller? And Breese is not the same guy anymore. Let me explain that to you as well. He's not the same Breese as he used to be. We've seen him make silly mistakes against Akhmedov or whatever his name is, that guy who just lost to Chris Weidman. But back in the day, the older Breese would have walked through him like nothing. That would have been a mismatch. But he made some silly mistakes, like he kept losing his position, dominating positions for some weird ankle lock submission. It looked like how that guy who just lost against the guy who's a police officer. He's a part-time police officer. He just beat that guy who's a prospect, undefeated guy. Oh man. Anyways, I hate names. If I was good with names, man, I swear I'd probably be on ESPN Center right now. There's nobody can break down and analyze and bring you information from the fighting aspect knowledge that I have. Nobody's got my information, my logic, my common sense, my depictions, and underdogs and locks are my specialty. You seen what I did with last week's underdog? He came through for everybody. Unfortunately, they didn't give us the credit we deserved for him, but oh well. We saw who won that fight. Everybody know I was the only person in the world that saw him winning. He was a big underdog. Yusukalek, he came through nicely. I was impressed with how he fought, but I expected it. I told you that's how it was going to happen. And again, like I said, these matchmakers know what they're doing. Okay, so Strickland could not be a more worst style nightmare matchup for a guy like Jotko Kristov. Jotko Kristov does not have nowhere near the volume, nowhere near the precision striking, nowhere near the angle and the footwork movement that Strickland has. How he's found his success is from being a gritty, forward pressure in your face. He's very good at dictating the pace of the fight and making it his type of a fight, which throws his opponents out of their element and makes them have to now fight in his world at his pace and from his range. And when you dictate and fight like that, you could take a fighter who's even better than you are. This is a more sound fighter. Look like a average guy or somebody who's not as good. You can look better than the opponent who's better than you by being able to control the octagon. When you can control the pace, the movement, the everything about the opponent that they don't want to have, they don't have the ability to choose when, how, and where to throw their strikes, and when you eliminated and nullified their threats. Most likely their strongest suits as well are now nullified. So he fights a good fight. He's got a good strategy. He's got a good but you couldn't have found a worse person to implement that on. Do you remember what Strickland did in his most recent fight against, what was that guy's name? Hold on a second. He's been looking better and better, by the way. Let me also mention, he's one of the more improved fighters on this card. Jiri is another guy who I can say is very improved, who's getting better and better as well, it seems like. But another guy who I can compare is looking great is Strickland. If you remember in the Jack Marshman fight, where again, I don't know why they don't give him the respect he deserves. In the Jack Marshman fight, we had him parlayed in, like, for the first time ever, I had him like in 90% of my parlays. I never put anybody, maybe Robert Whittaker, like Usman, Cyril Gaines, people like that I've put into like a lot of my parlays, but handful of people only. I like Maverick, I trusted. This was one of them, man, because just Sean Strickland is a guy that UFC is very high on. They really like him. They really want to be behind him. They love getting behind people who are, he likes to talk. He's like a Kevin Holland. He talks crap inside the octagon, who, by the way, he keeps calling him out and wanting to fight against them. So they want to promote, if they can keep him winning and put him against a exciting, fan-friendly type of a matchup with a guy who's got a lot of following, like Israel or somebody similar to an Israel. I mean, like Kevin Holland, who he knows that is going to make it for an exciting fight. Two people who like to talk inside the cage, two people who like to throw down, never back away. That's the problem here. So he doesn't back away, and you cannot dictate anything to this guy. You know what he did to Jack Marshman in a fight that he was controlling, dominating 10-8 rounds almost, and he was like way ahead in the scorecards. All 3 rounds was dominating and in his favor. And then towards the end of the final round, in the 3rd round, when most people would have stayed away, and like even if you lost 10-8 on that round, you would have still won because he was in so much control and so much of a lopsided mismatch type of and they only had him as a -200 favorite, by the way. So that's why there's so much value. 2 things that I take into consideration before I make somebody an important part of our night: value, and they got to be like a mismatch or somebody who I can trust to get the job done, most likely 9 or 10 out of 10 times. And then they also have to have value. Those 2 things are the most important thing to make somebody an important and a reoccurring used parlay piece. So I have a system and a equation for how we use everybody on that card is designed to be used in one way or another way better than any other way. Some fights are designed to be single bets. Some are perfect for parlays. Some are for prop bets. That's why I'm a specialist at this and an expert, because I can tell you in every fight who's the best way to bet him and how is the best way to bet him and which ways and how often. Anyway, so he should have been like a -500, -600, -700 even favorite. He was only a -200. And he was also an underdog when he was supposed to be a favorite against Allen. And I explained why and how he was going to beat Allen. And he did exactly that. And here's something I want you to remember. He's got some of the best takedown defense. Allen was struggling big. He's got like almost a 90% takedown defense accuracy and takedown defense percentage. But even if you get him to the ground, he's not easy to hold and keep there, and he's still a threat. He is very active. He's hard to keep. Besides Kamaru Usman, who we've seen, he's one of the greatest in the world, pound for pound, might be number 1 right now. He's top 2 in the world still. Currently, and there's no shame. He didn't get put away inside the distance easily. He wasn't like getting. He held his own against the champ. He went 3 rounds with him. So, but that was a long time ago. This guy, as I said, he's one of the most improved fighters on this card. And whatever that time was that he took off made him a better fighter, made him more confident, and he trains hard. He's one of the hardest workers in the gym. This is a guy who puts everybody else to work, and he can clear out the gym and still not be tired. He's got, oh yeah, I was trying to finish saying, in the last round, the 3rd round, the last minute of the 3rd round, do you know what he did? This shows, like, some people can say this is bad IQ, but this is the reason why we haven't even seen his potential. We haven't seen him nowhere near tested enough to know what he's capable of and how good he is. And that's the thing. Remember I told you this about Patricio Pitbull? we're getting the value at minus 200 against Emmanuel Sanchez, who he should be a minus 1,000 against, not only because he's beat him already, but because when he fights, he's at 30%, 40%, maybe not even 30%, maybe 20% of how hard he's trying his best to perform. If we ever watched this guy at 100%, his opponents would be finished inside the first round. That's the same goes with Strickland. He doesn't, what we see when he wants to put the full pedal to the metal, throttle to the, all the way in the overdrive, we seen what he could do. Do you remember why and what he did in the round, the last round, a minute or two left of the final round that he was winning in the fight against Jack Marshman? He told Jack Marshman, "Hey, Jack, come meet me in the middle of the ring, middle of the cage, and I'm going to give you a chance to win this fight." He put his hands down, not exactly down, but he gave him a chance to exchange in a back and forth duo, like a fighting brawl. He was willing to, his head movement, he went from winning and looking good to looking amazing. His head movement, his footwork, his boxing, his shoulder, everything, positioning, the way he looked like a world-class, elite-level boxer. And he called his opponent out just to give him a chance, to give the audience a show, and they know that the audience are starting to come back now. That even though this venue won't have audience inside of the Apex, they don't have the permission to get audience. Slowly but surely, they got places that they can start putting people like this in. And this is a guy, if you put him in a fight with an audience behind him, with an exciting fighter like Kevin Holland, so this is a setup fight. I'm telling you, they couldn't have given for Christoph's style where he's good at. This is a nightmare matchup. He's going to get dominated. He's going to get killed because it doesn't work. It's a mismatch in everywhere it goes, and the only time he has success is against fighters who are the opposite of what Strickland does, and has shown to be good at doing. It's going to make where Chris Jotko strong at and good at impossible to utilize. He's not going to be able to do what he does that gets him to win his fights. His way of winning is going to be impossible to implement, because it won't work on a guy like this. It'll be quite the opposite, actually. It'll work against him, like I said it was going to do for Allen. Allen even told him, "Come in my guard, let's go." He thought that, okay, he's beating me in the striking department. He's winning the stand-up battle. Let's see if he'll be willing to go down to the ground with me. This guy's he's practically a black belt. I mean, I think he's a brown belt, but some of these brown belts are better than black belts. This guy's if he's not a black belt, I think he's a black belt now. I think he just got promoted to a black belt. But this guy's guard is great. He knows how to work inside the guard. He knows how to keep people down, and he knows how to protect himself. He's not an easy guy. He can hang with the best of them. You can put him against the Damian Maias, even like the highest level submission specialists on the ground. And this guy's done hours and years on the ground and on the mat. He was killing Allen on the ground. You've seen what Allen just did to his opponent. We made some money on him. He was in our bet slips, a big part of our night. You've seen how nicely he was able to dispose of his opponents, and the most of the time, how impressive he looks on the ground. Well, Sean Strickland not only did not get himself into any trouble, the way Carl Robertson was in trouble, and the way so many other people, even Kevin Holland, who we were just speaking about, was in trouble against Brandon Allen. Strickland made Allen want to get back up and start to strike again. He made him want to go back up to the feet after getting picked apart. He didn't want no more business with him on the floor. He made a guy whose only path to victory, 99% of his fights are, he made him not want to go into that area. That's a guy who's well-rounded. That's a guy who's not hard. You can't really find many holes in his game. And he's a guy who starts fights inside a gas station, who tells a guy in the third round that, "Hey, I'm going to give you a chance to win this fight. Come on, let's box this out." Instead of running and resetting and trying to hang on to his legs and hug him and hold on until the round is over because he knew he secured the win, he made it more dangerous. He made it the most dangerous it's ever been. The only shots he ever took in the entire fight was during the last minute because he asked the guy to come and brawl it out with him. The guy thought he was crazy, and that's psychological warfare. That also is a huge fact. When you got an opponent that you think is crazy, fearless, and skilled, all at the same time, it's a very frustrating, and it makes you not fight like yourself. It makes you not confident, and that can mess up with somebody's game plan, and it can mess up with their calm, cool collectiveness, which is imperative in making smart decisions and shot selections and defending yourself. So this is in a lot of ways a mismatch, and it should be, once again, Sean Strickland being a much bigger favorite, but he's once again third fight in a row not getting the respect he deserves on the lines. I don't know why. This guy's always been disrespected at the lines. They open him up as a favorite, even not as big of a favorite as he should be. And sometimes they open him up as an underdog, even when he shouldn't have been one. So yes, he's very long for the division. He's very strong. He uses the jab better than anybody. His angles and footwork is one of the best in the division. So I just don't see the path to victory. His volume is pretty good. Let's check out his significant strikes rate per minute versus his opponent. And if I'm not mistaken, his opponent is very injury prone. He's always gone he's always had to cancel fights and get them rescheduled due through like injuries or COVID related. Just for one reason, there's a lot of injuries. Even before the COVID era, he's been a guy who wasn't very active because he had to pull out of a lot of fights. So it's hard to trust someone like that, especially because I don't think he's going into the fight fully healed. Most fighters, they go into the fights with some pre-existing injuries all the time. But a guy who's done this in the last, more than half of his fights have always fell through. He's always had to reschedule, or fall out. And every time he's ever scheduled a fight, it's almost been rescheduled at one point. He's rescheduled and canceled fights due to injuries more often than not. So that's a concerning thing. Durability against the guy who's going to be, as they call him, Tarzan for a reason. He's an animal. He's like an animal. Look at this. Look at his strike rate. Landing per minute, over 5 point something, right? He's only absorbing 3 something. And that was the old version. The new version is new and improved. I would more so put him along the lines of 6 per minute and absorbing maybe 2, if that, depending on who he's fighting. These are stats because this guy's been, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. These are in a course of over 12 fights in the UFC. And they stem from as far back as 2014. He's not the same guy as 2014. If we just looked at the last 3 fights alone, let's see. His last fight against Brendan Allen, he doubled him, 95 to 50. 1 takedown to 0. It was a TKO in the second round. Mind you, this was in the second round in only 1 minute or so of the second round. Okay, so pretty much just 1 round because the second round didn't even come halfway through. So early in the second round, which means pretty much just 1 full round, he was able to land 95 strikes against a guy who was trying to go to the ground with him. So imagine somebody who's not going to try to take him to the ground. And he did 95 strikes in 1 round. It took him 1 round and 1 minute of the second round to gain 94 strikes. And a takedown. So imagine how many more strikes would have been if he didn't get the takedown. All right, and he took a guy down like Allen. Who takes a guy like Allen down? That's the opposite. Allen's the one that's trying to take you down in the fights, right? Nope. He took Allen down and made Allen want to get back up. He didn't want no part of the ground war with Strickland. And we're talking about Brandon Allen. The guy who's got majority of all of his wins from there. Again, underrated, very underrated, highly disrespected at the lines. And then Jack Marshman, he was toying with Marshman. He got over 100 strikes in that fight. He landed over 100 strikes. Landed. And his opponent only had 40. That's tripled, guys. He tripled Marshman. And he was only a minus 200 and toying with him. Nordine Talab. He even scored a knockdown. Oh, by the way, he also knocked down Brandon Allen. He scored a knockdown. That was a 10-8 round. So scoring a knockdown also against Nordine Taleb and out-voluming him. And mind you, this was also a fight that finished early in the second round. So two guys he finished early. Again, another guy he finished early, and he landed about 70 strikes, including a knockdown. He's only lost against the best of them. Look, besides Elizo Zaleski dos Santos, who there's no shame in that. That was a kick. Anybody you've seen Riley Zhang, 22 fights, 21 wins, only 1 loss, had never been put away inside the distance. She lost back to Thug Rose because of a kick. Impa Casagne, undefeated, never been beaten nonetheless inside the distance. Joaquin Buckley, a guy who even just lost to Alessio Di Chirico, he beat him because of a kick. Kicks are not the same as a punch, guys. You cannot say somebody's not durable or chinny or hard to trust because of a kick taking them out. Anybody can go down via kick. Kicks are very, very hard to recover from. That's what made me even more impressed with Alessio Di Chirico. And after that, Zach Cummings. That's why I was all over the underdog against Zach Cummings. He took a crazy kick and bounced right back up. And that's another example of the matchmakers know what they're doing. They're giving you Joaquin Buckley, a guy who hasn't won a decision since 2014. And it was a split decision, by the way, against the guy who's 9-5 outside the UFC. And then you're going to put him against the guy who's never been TKO'd? And you think you're going to get him to win that fight as a minus 300 favorite? Cash me in all day at the plus money. Easy money. Me and this matchmaker, I feel like we're twins. We have like a telekinesis. If I was a matchmaker and I wanted to mess with people, I would do what this guy's doing. He must have a lot of fun at the office. Hey, Dana, book this fight. Look what's going to happen. Watch this. And then Dana's like, what do you mean? We don't want this guy to get killed. We like this guy. Exactly. Book this fight. Everybody's going to think he's going to lose, and look how he's going to win. The Chiesa Magny. I told you, remember what I said about Chiesa versus Neil Magny? I said because Magny was trying to make himself look better than the UFC, saying, hey, I'm raising my hand. You guys keep saying nobody wants to fight Khamzat, but I'm the one that keeps telling you guys I want to fight him. But it was a bad nightmare matchup but it was a bad style matchup for Khamzat. So they didn't want to derail the hype train that they could make money off of. So they kept trying to avoid. But this guy kept trying to make noise and be loud, go to social media and make it look like that UFC was lying about nobody wanting to fight him. UFC got so pissed. They made him a favorite, rightfully, because everybody assumed that he should be able to beat the guy like Chiesa. But what did I tell you guys? Nightmare matchup. It was going to be harder than the Khamzat fight for him. It was a guy who's stronger than him. And anytime you're stronger in a physical sense and you're a wrestling heavy type of a game plan strategic fighter, and you're going against a guy who's willing to go into the grappling realm with you, the stronger guy and the better wrestler, I told you, was supposed to be Magny. And exactly how I said, even when he was losing some of the positions, the extra strength that he had over his opponent, Magny, he was able to outmuscle him and gain the better top positions. I cashed in big. Even my own patrons were disagreeing with me about the Magny fight. I said, if you don't trust me, just at least take the over. Don't bet on Magny, just bet on the over, okay? Trust me that it's not only Magny's going to lose, but it'll be by decision. So I ended up convincing some of them to trust me not to take Magny. Most of them took the underdog, Chiesa, so they were extra happy about that. But the other ones that were uncomfortable because all the other channels, all the other gurus thought what the matchmakers figured they would when they set this fight up. They wanted to make an example and teach a lesson to a guy who was trying to make them look bad. I saw it from a mile away. As soon as they booked that fight, I knew this was punishment. hey, okay, we're going to give you somebody who's even worse than Khamzat, for you especially, I mean, and you're supposed to beat this guy. So even if you do beat him, everybody's going to say, well, that's what you're supposed to do. But when you lose, it's going to be even worse. You're not going to be this big, tough, scary guy that you're trying out to make yourself look like by throwing us under the bus. That was a lesson they taught him. And it was a message that they sent from the matchmaker, because they got a guy who knows how to give you guys the worst night. Even Anthony Smith said this. Anthony Smith said, if you ever get on the bad side of the UFC marketing machine, I guarantee you're going to start getting matches that are the worst for you. People know that. Fighters know that. I picked up on it because this is my living. That's what I do for a living, guys. I'm a specialist. I'm a professional at the betting aspects and the MMA aspects and the fighting. If you don't have all three of those aspects, if you have not mastered the betting aspect and how to bet, like from parlays, what's the better way of either parlaying somebody depending on the risks, the rewards, the value, the capability of trusting somebody. There's so many things that go into you needing to ask yourself and to determine before figuring out if this is a parlay piece. And if he is he a high-level parlay piece, one that you should use in this many or that many or this little bit. So there's a lot behind this. Nobody should be able to know how to do this unless you're a fighter, unless you're a trainer, which I was both, and a betting expert, which I did for many years, trial and error, hard way. I learned how to master it, expensive and hard way. And I even do a tutorial inside the Patreon, and I taught you guys a lot of things about betting that will stick with you for life. You'll benefit from it for a long time, even after the Patreon if you ever left. Anyway, so the value is really good. The rates are going to go up. We still have an event, by the way, for those who want to join. The May 1st event that we're talking about today is going to be given. The full bet slips are going to be given out to you guys by either tomorrow or the day after. So you'll get it in the month of April, and that alone pays for like 6 months worth of membership. So don't worry about, not having a full month or nothing like that. You're going to win by you missing out on the bet slips for the first. That's going to cost you way more money than anything else if you miss out on that. Okay, so Sean Strickland, our lock of the week against Krzysztof Jotko. Again, this is a guy who is just gonna find out the hard way that his techniques, his style, that he's gonna try to implement. Not only will it not work, but the more he tries to do it, similar to when Brendan Allen realized, like, oh crap, I better get off the ground. This guy's not as bad as I thought he was on the ground, and he thought he could dominate him from the ground, from the guard. He ends up then trying to get back up, and that's his style of fighting. Same thing goes with Jotko. He's gonna realize that what he's doing in most of his fights where he finds his success is going to be something that is going to work against him in this fight. So he's got to change. He's got to fight different than he's ever fought before. He's got to have a new game plan. And anytime somebody tries something new, something that they're not used to, it's not a good idea to practice and try something that you're not polished and seasoned at during your fights. So unless he's tried to become a different fighter than he is, it's not going to be like, you'll notice he throws very loopy, like when you're going to see precision striking from Strickland's, because he throws perfect way. Like his techniques are just crisp and perfect. Now, Jotko, on the other hand, is similar to what I said, like Pedro Munez does. He's very loopy. He doesn't, if you're throwing with loopy punches and they're not down the middle, they're not precise, you're not swinging with your hips, and you're not pivoting your foot the correct way, like when he's throwing his strikes, he doesn't do. That's a problem, because now you got to be extra. Why do you think, if you pay attention to his fight with David Branch was laughing on the stand-up. He dominated Krzysztof. He even got hit with a couple of uppercuts, and he took some good shots, clean shots, but you know why they didn't do any damage? They never knocked him down. They never even made him wobbly. He's throwing them in the wrong way, for one, which means that the power is not going to be delivered. Number two, you cannot be precise when you're throwing loopy punches. It's impossible. You're going to land on the cheeks, on the nose, on the ears. You're never going to hit them in the place that it matters. So I think he did lose the branch fight, right? Let me check. Christoph, Eric Anders. Yeah, he lost he lost a branch. He lost Uriah Hall. Again, another guy, because that's a similar, perfect example. Uriah Hall doesn't do a lot of the same things, but one of the things that he does similar and exactly the same way that Sean Strickland does is time and counter. His counters and timing and precision is very similar to Strickland's. Everything else is not so much. The volume, the patience. So, but Strickland's very good at the same way he's good at getting out of the way. He's good at being where he needs to be when the opening presents itself. So you cannot make mistakes against a guy like, ask Tom Breese what happened every time he made a mistake in their fight. You'll pay for it. And at this level, with his reach, his distance, his precision, his correct way of throwing the strikes, you can't afford to make too many mistakes. The more you make mistakes, and his cardio especially, he can go rounds after rounds. In the later rounds, I would not be surprised if he really wants to, especially if Crisco does not change up the way he fights. If he just fights the way he's fought in all of his other fights, if he's still around in the second, third round when Strickland's still going to be fresh, it's quite, actually Strickland gets better in the later rounds. In the beginning, he's still good, don't get me wrong, but the longer the fight goes, the more like, once he warms up and gets in the rhythm, finds his distance, he feels out his opponent's powers and timing and everything, he gets better and better. So he's good for live bet as well. If you want to, in the beginning, he won't look as good as he will in the later rounds, and it's the opposite with Crisco. He'll fade away while the other guy is getting better. So another opportunity you may want to consider is, I think he's a good enough parlay piece, single bet piece. You don't have to get greedy and do props. Props are very risky because it's not like one or two different methods. It could go any way, and especially with a guy who doesn't give you 100%, who sometimes likes to take his foot off the pedal and fight at a slower pace or not within his full capabilities. You don't want to take a risk because we don't know when he'll get if the guy says something that pisses him off, then all of a sudden he's going to be at 100% and put him away. So it's hard to trust a prop bet in a fight like this. You don't want to go and get greedy and take risks. That's gambling. We only take bets in the Patreon that are safe. If it's not in our side, the odds are not in our favor, I don't want it. I don't chase value. I don't chase it because it's a wide line. That's for people who are incapable of doing what I'm doing, who are incapable of dissecting two fighters and then matching them together in their heads and saying, okay, well, after I've replayed this over and over in my head, I keep envisioning this or that to happen, which results in this happening or this person winning. That's what I do in every fight. It's not a coincidence that my accuracy is as high as it is. And if I never did parlays, like there's some weeks where I go parlay heavy. Like last week, I get so confident. That's my only downfall. Sometimes is my confidence. I'm so confident in myself that I don't sometimes take account for weird things like robberies, freak accidents, injuries. So I made like higher than normal, bigger leg parlays without incorporating the usual single bets and props and smaller parlays that usually act as insurance in case something goes wrong. And I don't incorporate that sometimes if we had like 8 weeks in a row where we profited good money. But then I have to keep in mind that some people are new. They're in the Patreon for the first week. So I apologize if I make sometimes the mistake of how I allocate the risks and take higher risks. It's just like a blackjack table. When you keep hitting blackjack or you keep winning against the dealer who keeps busting, after a while you kind of raise the chips a little bit, raise the risks, I do that sometimes, but it works more often than not. But what I'm going to start to do different as well from that one, I'm going to give you guys, I thought about doing this some while ago. I was going to do it and I kind of fell away from it. I'm going to do two versions of the bet slips. I'm going to do low risk, high risk. So anybody who wants to take the risky route to take high risk for high rewards, knowing that my accuracy is so good that that's probably going to be the best way in the long run, because those are the bet slips that when you win one night, you can afford 20 nights of losing in a row and not break even. You'll still be in the profit. So they even out. Or the other guy who's taking low risk, he's still winning triple or more his money. He's not winning 10 times his money, but triple or more on a consistent back-to-back weeks. And there's like 4 to 5 events, or sometimes 9 or 10 events in a month. That becomes steady income. That becomes a consistent, steady supplemental source of income. You don't even need to work at that point if you're putting enough money on a low risk bet. So here, anybody who joins the Patreon, or if you're already in the Patreon, just say, hey Guru, I want low risk. Just ask for low risk bets, and I'll tell you how to design it in a way where there's no way you're gonna lose. All right, guys, thank you. Please don't forget to hit the like, hit the subscribe, the bell notification reminders. I'm going to be coming out with a lot more content, mostly in the Patreon especially. They're going to get the full card breakdown. Every fight, I'm going to dissect it from head to toe. And they also come with posts that are private, exclusive for patrons only. It shows like stats, images, my opinions, my depiction of who, how, and what. Like the Kudalaba fight is in there right now. You can see I broke it down in a sense to my patrons about who's going to win and how they're going to win for the Kudalaba and Dustin Jacoby fight. That's an important one. A lot of people are torn between who's going to win, and it seems like they're mostly getting it wrong, but I'll tell you exactly who is going to win and why they're going to win. It's a very easy. I don't usually have problems with like being torn between who's going to win. It's very clear in my opinion. I already know who's going to win all of these fights even before I research them, but especially when I'm done researching them and I do my due diligence, I'm confident in all these picks. All right, guys, thank you for your time. Any questions, hit me up in the comment section. But if you could just leave a comment, it helps my channel grow and the algorithm to get my channel seen. So I would appreciate you leaving a comment. Anybody who's witnessed my picks, taking time, I do this for free, the kindness of my heart. I don't get paid for being on YouTube. You see how long this video is. I could have been doing 100 other things, making money. I gave you my time for free. If you can please join the Patreon, show some support. There's a lower tier for those who just want some basics, and you'll still make money off the lowest tier, by the way. And if you want to do this as a supplemental income, some extra money coming in during these crazy times especially, I'm sure it could be useful for everybody. I'll give you even a money back guarantee for this month. This last week we have left, May 1st. If you don't win money, if we don't have a bet slip that turns out to be a profitable bet slip, if you join this month as of today, right now, I guarantee you money back guarantee for joining up with us. That's a special I'm doing as of right today. Money back guarantee for anybody who joins and gets the bet slips for this weekend's May 1st event, Jiri. First picture, but you can also get some other tips and stuff that are included. My Patreon is not just for UFC, and it's not just for one event at a time. I give you locks from the events afterwards. So before the books close and the event starts for this week, I'll also be giving you some locks for the following week. So anybody who wants to combine parlay pieces in from 2 different events into one to increase the value, it's a good trick I teach the people to do for them to increase their value, increase their payouts and likelihood of cashing in, because you don't have to put low level or difficult fights to call, because in the event there's usually no more than a couple of safe picks. But if you combine more than one event, you could do the safest from each event, put them into a parlay, make it a bigger parlay that's as safe as a smaller parlay. It's the safety of like a 2-legger with the benefits and the payout of a 4-legger. So I also do that. I give you early locks from the next 2 weeks to combine it with this week's. There's a lot of benefits from joining early. You'll make your money back, and it's guaranteed, or your money back. How much more better does it get than that, right? Hit the likes, hit the comment section up, hit the reminders, tell your friend. If we get to 1,000 subscribers, we're only like 10 away. I'm at like 990 almost. We can start doing live super chats where we can interact. You can ask me questions, and it'll be a lot more better for you guys. Thank you for your time. God bless. See you on the next episode. Like Dr. Dre.